Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Apptrepreneur, and we're doing this new story as a live stream. I just can't sleep, and I figured, you know what? If I'm going to sleep in tomorrow, I might as well have a video ready for people as they are waking up. It is 3 a.m. now, although some people might be here live because it is actually 6 a.m. for them. You gotta love that time difference. So, anyway, there were two stories that I want to cover today, and I'm going to obviously deal with this one first. The other one I'll deal with a little later because I think I want my full setup on that one. But this one I can talk about a little bit easier on a live stream, and you don't need the visuals as much. So, anyway, I'm reading this headline from CNBC, and it's pretty clear. Amazon workers plan strike at Staten Island warehouse to demand protections with what's going on. Now, we have talked about this before. Jeff Bezos actually wrote like a long letter to employees, basically acknowledging that the problem with what the current pandemic is going to get worse. And unfortunately, people who work at the warehouses are at high risk. They're trying to get sanitizer, they're trying to get gloves, they're trying to get masks. Medical professionals need those things first, and where that's just the way it is. However, that they were going to pay people more money while working through this difficult time because, hey, it is a dangerous job, but it is necessary for a lot of people. And here's the thing, in one of the rare instances, and I don't defend Amazon much, but I do like to try to be fair. And I had to say that that email was probably about as good of an email as we could have gotten in the current situation. It addressed a lot of concerns. It highlighted a plan going forward, what they would like to happen. It acknowledged the hurdles in that plan, and they even said, "But you know what? Here, we're going to be paying you better because of all the things that's going on right now with the warehouse." Well, here's the thing: there's a warehouse in New York, and New York has kind of become like ground zero for all of this. It just they are suffering over in New York. And we're starting to see like real effects of this. We're starting to see celebrities die. We're starting to now get to the point where we all know someone who has caught this creepy crud and might be sick. And even President Trump, during when he extended the deadline for getting back to work, one of the things he talked about, and I actually sensed he was being very human at this point, he talked about a friend who caught the virus, and then a day later, he called to see how this friend was doing, and that person was now in a coma. This is serious. So, a strike for Amazon workers is definitely a gray area in this case. Now, according to this article, Amazon warehouse workers in Staten Island plan to strike on Monday to call attention to the lack of protections for employees who continue to come to work amid this outbreak. Nearly 100 workers at the facility, known as JFK 8, plan to participate in the work stoppage. The employees will walk out Monday morning and, quote, cease all operations, unquote, until their demands are heard by site leadership, said Chris Smalls, a management assistant at JFK 8 and a lead organizer of the strike. Smalls and other associates said they've grown increasingly concerned about coming into work after an employee tested positive for this virus there last week. And I will say, if they tested positive, then yes, that location absolutely needs to be shut down for a couple of weeks. No ifs, ands, or buts. Shut it down. An Amazon spokesperson told CNBC it was supporting the individual who was in quarantine and asked anyone who was in contact with the individual to stay home with pay for 2 weeks. Oh, I'm going to say that is a good response. That's a good response. So, but here's where it's not a good response because the facility has remained open. And they quote, "We are following all the guidelines from local health officials and are taking extreme measures to ensure the safety of employees at our site." And this is what the spokesperson said. "The workers want the strike to put pressure on Amazon to close the facility for cleaning, which they should have done, and offer employees paid time off while it's shut down, which I'm sure Amazon doesn't want to do." Small said the facility has continued to run as usual since the employees tested positive. He fears the virus will spread like wildfire if no extra precautions are taken. JFK 8 employs 4,500 workers and spans 855,000 square feet. Now, Smalls has continued, since the building won't close by itself, we're going to have to force Amazon's hand. We will not return until the building gets sanitized. And here's the other thing. Well, what's like the CDC guidelines where they are recommending these companies do this. Someone comes in and they test positive. Yes, you can sanitize the place, but you also should shut it down for a couple weeks. That's what they're that's what they're recommending. Sorry, got the hiccup all the time. So here's the thing. One of the things that's causing this is that apparently there have been 13 facilities that have reported cases where this virus has come in. Most of the facilities have remained open. I was not aware of that. Now, we talked about this and we talked about the letter, and I explained how this was going to be a big problem for Amazon. I also expressed some gratitude that Amazon exists because right now we're dependent on shipping things way more than usual. But Amazon has some challenges ahead of them. Every time the virus comes into the warehouse, they have to close that warehouse for a couple of weeks, sanitize, and send the employees home, preferably with pay. What's more, the Postal Service might be in major jeopardy, and unless it gets bailed out, there won't be any packages to mail. Now, Amazon does have their own delivery service, they have their flex drivers. They still depend on the post office. They absolutely do. That said, I assumed at the time that everything was actually going much better. Hey, no, I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. I had assumed Amazon had the thing under control. I read that letter where Bezos talked about, hey, this is going to get a lot worse. We're doing what we can. We've ordered masks, we've ordered Purell, wipes. We might take a long time to get those things. However, we have to prioritize the doctors and stuff first. And hey, we're going to be paying people more during this time period because we know they're at risk. The response was actually very responsible for the most part. I gave Amazon a lot of credit, and I still do. And you know what? I'll still give them credit even in this story when they found out some people were within contact with this person. They told them go home, 2 weeks paid. Hey, that's great. Self quarantine. So why is there a strike? What is the problem with this strike? The problem is the warehouses aren't being closed. And that's something that I assumed was happening last time we talked about this, but apparently that has not happened. Amazon has had 13 facilities that have reported this case. And while they definitely have sent people home with pay, and that's all well and good, they need to be closing these facilities. They need to, like, I am starting to wonder a little bit if some of the companies even realize like what self-quarantine means. A company that I'm doing business with and more than likely will not be doing business with going forward at this point had a very similar situation. Somebody came in with the virus. The responsible thing to do at that point would have been to shut the warehouse down, send the office people home to work for a couple weeks, and sanitize the place and quarantine it to make sure it's gone. But they didn't want to do that because it would lose them too much money. So what do? They sent people home for 1 day. They cleaned it, whatever the heck that means, and then they expected everyone to come back to work the next day. And while I was not there because I am currently taking a leave from that company, by all reports from the few people that did go to work, a lot of people chose not to return to work because the reality is you cannot expect people to do something that is dangerous, without fair compensation. Of course, some people might bring up like, cops and firemen, like, hey, they put their lives in the line. You know what? Hey, this is a warehouse. They're moving boxes. They're moving Final Fantasy VII games. Like, it shouldn't be that dangerous. Like, when companies say you have to go to work, even though the circumstances are dangerous, I do have an issue with that. So, obviously, I support the strike. I do support the strike. I mean, if the workers are feeling unsafe, they have every right to protest and not go to work. I'm also going to acknowledge that with the exception of not closing the warehouses, I have to say Amazon's response has been very mature. It's been very responsible. I really have been impressed with them. They've done a very good job at handling this, all things considered. Now, I did acknowledge in that other video that The more warehouses have this thing actually come in, it could start crippling. They've got about, I think, 120 warehouses in America, and 13 have been infected. That's more, a little, just a hair above 10% of warehouses that are now closed, which that impedes on productivity, that impedes on sales, that impedes on shipping. But now I hear they're not even closing it, and so yeah, that makes me a little upset. That makes me very, very upset. So now I'm not going to get all animated because it is really early in the morning. I'm trying not to wake people in the house. However, I think there is a very simple solution to this. Amazon, with all the warehouses that are infected, close them, disinfect them, pay the employees for 2 weeks, bring them back. Just just do what you have to do to make them feel safe. This is, as Bezos said at one point, your time to shine. You need to be the leader in this. You are the number one online retailer e-commerce in the world. And here's one of the problems. When Amazon decides not to do something, sometimes that gives other companies leeway, like, well, Amazon's not shutting down their warehouses when the virus comes in, and they can certainly afford to shut a few down. We can't afford to shut down our warehouses, so therefore we're not going to close them either. We're going to follow their example. And one of the negative things about situations like this, of course, is it kind of becomes a whole, you need to do this, and then the company say, make me. So this is actually one of the more nuanced cases when it comes to Amazon. I think Amazon has, for the most part, handled the situation well. They've responded accordingly. They need to shut the warehouses down. If the warehouses have someone come in that's infected, you know what? No ifs, ands, or buts. Close the warehouse, disinfect it, send them home, pay them for 2 weeks, bring them back. It's probably going to happen quite a few times. Unfortunately, this is life for the time being. Until it's under control, and I'm now hearing like the doctors are saying this might peak mid-May or something. Look, we're in this for the long haul. It's only going to last a few months but long term, it's definitely going to have like a huge effect. So, look, the sooner we just get this under control, the better. Um, but, and of course, I should note again, this strike is happening in Staten Island. I suspect they have more reason than most to want to strike, and they're probably feeling pretty uneasy about the whole situation. I can't imagine what it's like living in New York right now. But anyway, that's where, and one of my video that I post later is going to be about another company who also had a strike fairly recently, but they were much more proactive about it, and I think it's a good example of how most companies can be to avoid a lot of bad publicity when it comes to these strikes. But we'll talk about that when it's time. We'll have the whole setup at that point. In the meantime, first of all, everyone who watched this live, thank you for watching it live. I really appreciate that. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. And for everyone else, hey, if you're watching this after the fact, also give it a thumbs up. And also comment below and favorite, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you for watching the videos. And I will see you all later, and flame responsibly. Have a good one.